Hey y'all, Ramdino here, coming at you again for another Appalachian Trail Thru Hiker update. Welcome to my channel. If this is the first time you're here, this is a place where everybody comes to find out what's going on with the Appalachian Trail, what's going on with Thru Hikers, and help me build and support the hiker community. So let's go ahead and find out what's going on with the trail. Well, 2020 Thru Hikers are still out there on the trail. We got Nat Geo and Mayo. They have somewhere around 300 miles left on their trip. They're somewhere around the Hot Springs area. So looking forward to seeing them continue, looking forward to their updates. Crash Bash and Whole Foods, they are in the Smokies heading south. They've had a little bit of weather issues. They've had to wait out some weather to shelter, but they are on their way. We do have some weather coming in on Monday, so it's going to be altitude. It may be snow, but lower altitudes it's going to be rain. So folks out there on the trail, just keep that in mind wherever you are. Looks like Monday in the North Carolina, Tennessee, maybe even Southern Virginia, and certainly Georgia is going to be a wet one. Our calendar year triple crowners, Sammy and Jackson, they are last known. They were somewhere in Grayson Highlands. They are probably at Mount Rogers, and knowing them, they may be all the way up at Atkins by now. Those boys they have found a high gear and they are getting it. But in any case, it's fun to watch them, fun to watch their snack chats. And so I'd encourage you to go to their Instagram channel and check them out. Moonbeam, Big Cypress, Subman and Suds, they are somewhere around Franklin and they are heading towards Fontana. Apple Pie and Greenleaf, those are crazy folks they're Sobo from Katahdin that for 2021 they were in the Moody Mountain area and the snowpack was so deep they were only making something like a quarter mile an hour. So that was just not sustainable, and so they went backwards, got back to the trailhead, got off the trail, and they are going to skip around the Mahoosucs and go ahead and head over to the Whites. Now, I know you're thinking the Whites, that's not going to be much better, but in the Whites, there's more. Apparently, they feel like there's more people hiking there. More people will have broke trail in front of them, and so they want to be breaking that much trail, and the going should be a whole lot better. So that's what their plans are, and so their Sobos turn into a flip flop because they'll have to go back and that part that they flipped around, they'll have to go back and catch up on that later. Boxcar Willie, he has made it to the Knock and is heading on to Fontana, and he should be knocking on the door of the Smokies in just a day or so. The Suttons, they have made it to Neal Gap, and they are on their way to Dix Creek Gap. Suttons are a family. They have my wife says he may be 5 years old. I'm not sure how old he is, but he's very young. But it's interesting to watch them and their interactions as they go. So going to be exciting to see them as they get on up the trail. And then Happy, he has made it to Franklin. And Quicksand, he made it to Hogspin Gap down in Georgia, and he is having some foot problems. Quicksand's not known to have foot problems. You know, he has done Nobo before, he's done Sobo before. He may have done a complete thru hike more than just twice, I'm not sure, but he's going Nobo this year. And so he got off at Hogpin Gap. He was smart. He didn't try to make it just to make miles on a foot that was ailing him all the way to Unicoi. And so he got off at Hogpen, got into town there, and he is going to go get checked out at an urgent care center and maybe take a 0 or so, rest that foot a little bit, and hopefully he will be able to get back on the trail. Y'all go and go to his channel and cheer him on. Just let him know that you're thinking about him and looking forward to him getting back on, or maybe if he has to go home for a couple days or a week or so, then I believe he lives in Georgia, so that wouldn't be that big a deal for him to go home and do that, and he could and then get back out there and recoup and go full speed ahead. So Quicksand, I know you watch this channel from time to time, so we're thinking about you and looking forward to seeing what happens and just watching your trip as you go ahead and make it all the way to Katahdin, because we know that you will. Start next week, we got Blowtorch. So looking forward to Blowtorch. He's going to be Nobo from Springer. I don't think he's doing the approach trail, but he and possibly going to be starting next week. That was his, next week was his target time that he was going to be starting. He's listed there in our on our Google spreadsheet. So hopefully he will be able to do that. I know he was working with some gear issues and getting those straightened out. And then off trail, Sterling Bade had to get off trail due to an injury that he had on the approach trail. He really had a run of some bad luck starting from when he landed at the airport down in Atlanta. So he is on our list as well. I would encourage you to go take a look at his channel and kind of let him know you're thinking about him. He went ahead and went all the way back home to Colorado just because of some issues that he had, but he says he's going to be getting back out there. Hopefully he will. I know that for a lot of people, this is a lifelong experience and a lifelong dream, and just because you have bad luck doesn't mean that dream goes away. So Sterling, if you're watching, we look forward to you getting back out there. I think he said he's probably going to wait for a little warmer weather. So y'all go ahead and go to his channel and cheer him on. And then there's a lot of folks that are coming up the 1st of February that you're going to need to be going and checking out their channels and signing up for them as well and cheering them on. So that's kind of when everything starts really breaking loose in February. Of course, February, March, and April are when the bubble happens and when most of the hikers start. So our registrations from last week were 2,069, and this week we're NOBO at 2,170 folks. So that's up almost 100 people just NOBO. Flip-floppers were 105 last week, and this week they're 107, and Subo was 86 last week, and this week they're 89. So our total last week was 2,260, and this week we're at 2,366. So that's up 106 folks right there, and last year this time we were at 1,818, so we're up 548 hikers over last year's registration. So again, that's up at 30%, and that's tracking with that decade or more curve we've seen in folks getting on the trail every year, of it increasing 30% every year. This past week, the trail got maxed out even more days. We were maxed out last week at 18 days on the trail, and this week we've maxed out 25 days. So part of that is that the ATC has lowered the threshold for maxed out from 50 down to 38. And you can see here that anything at or above this red line is considered maxed out. I looked at February 27th to April 3rd, which is where the bubble is, and we're maxed out for most of those days in there. And of course, most of that is March. And so that means I looked at it, and that I don't think there was any days that were under 30. Most days, more days than not, looks like we were maxed out in there. So you think about it, 30 days, 30 hikers per day getting on the trail, that's right at 100 hikers every 3 days. So, you know, some hike slower, some hike faster, but that's still a lot. 100 folks in close proximity, that's still a lot of folks out there. So that bubble is really building, and you know, a lot of people don't want to start too late. A lot of people don't want to start too early, and so we're kind of losing that area there where there's not going to be a lot of people on the trail at one time if you are thinking about just doing a pure NOBO. So, you know, maybe it might be a year to do a flip-flop and maybe just start a little more north on the trail than starting at Springer. Maybe start up in Franklin or something like that. But all those are things to think about. If you're out there for the social aspect, you are going to get it this year. That is for sure. Some trail news that we've got out there. So every year about this time, the National Park Service, or the National Forest Service rather, closes roads, access roads, back into the backcountry. And those are Forest Service roads that typically are not well maintained, and certainly not maintained in the winter. So they don't scrape them, they don't do any snow removal, they don't really do much work on them at all. And there's a lot of times, you know, they're really tight roads typically, and so you have a lot of trees, a lot of blowdowns because of snow and ice, and they just do not go and keep those up. They don't want people going up there, and so they just let the trees fall, and before they open them up, they go through one time after the winter and get everything out of the road that's fallen down. So from now until April 1st, these roads, and there's other roads as well, but these are the ones that I looked at that have access to trailheads and back in the backcountry on the Appalachian Trail. So we have Forest Service Road 71, which is the deep gap access there at Franklin off of Highway 64. That is closed. So there's no more access to Deep Gap. Deep Gap is not a bailout point for you until April 1st. Forest Service Roads 67 and 83, which is Upper Nantahala and Ball Creek roads, those are the access to the Albert Mountain area, Albert Mountain Fire Tower area. So you cannot use that as a bailout point now. And then Fire Service Road 69 is the Way-a-Bald access that goes all the way up to the Way-a-Bald lookout up there. It used to be a fire tower. It's an old CC stone structure now. It burned several years ago when we had the fires that come through here, and they've rebuilt it completely now. There's bathrooms up there, but they'll be closed and locked up, and there's no access up there now at all either. So keep that in mind as you're planning ahead. If you're thinking that, okay, we're going to have to get off at it, we may need to get off at a particular point due to injury, or I might have to call a shuttle, resupply, or what have you, those access roads are not going to be there for you to utilize. And then several days ago, the ATC released an article on hang tags. So hang tags, I call them bag tags. That's the little plastic triangle-shaped thing that they used to give out up until last year during the pandemic. They used to give for people to hang on their backpack. And of course, I did a video about that almost a week ago to the day when they put out their article. I don't think that is any coincidence. I think that is because we, you, me, the hiker community, watched that video and made a lot of comments on it. And there was a pretty good bit of comments on it, and they were, all over the board, but pretty much going in the same direction. I think the ATC is watching. I think they are listening. I think they heard you. And even though their article, there wasn't really anything that changed in their article. It was the same information that I'd given out. But, and it didn't change the fact that they're still not doing hang tags. But it was an article that, for whatever reason, they felt like they needed to put out. So I think they're listening, and I think that we can do something with that now that we know that we have their ear. So think about that. I'm going to think about that, about what we can do with that. And hopefully things will begin to change. Things will begin to turn around between the hiker community and the ATC. And we'll talk about that in some subsequent videos coming up. But I fully believe that it was you, the hiker community, that influenced that. And I look forward to us what we can do with that. ATCO, which is the Appalachian Trail Kickoff down at Amicalola Falls State Park in March, that has been canceled. I spoke with the folks down at the Visitor Center at Amicalola Falls State Park, and they indicated to me that it had been canceled. They also said that I could call the ATC because they were in charge of that. So I didn't quite get that, because there's so much of it that takes place. I mean, all of it takes place at Amicalola Falls State Park, and it looks like that they do everything down there. So I did reach out to the ATC, and my source there indicated that the ATC is not in charge of that, that the ATC really just shows up and has a booth. She did call down there and verify that it had been canceled. So, but the stories there didn't line up. The ATC says they're not in charge. Amicalola Falls State Park Visitor Center personnel says they're not in charge. So I think quite possibly that the individual down at the state park was maybe somebody that just was not as experienced, or maybe was new or something. I'm pretty certain that my source at the ATC knew what she was talking about, since she's been there for over 24 years. So anyway, it doesn't matter. We've got two sources that say ATCO's been canceled. Fortunately, trail days hadn't been canceled, and as of my last information that I had, neither had the hiker celebration there at Roan Mountain. It was still on, and that happens the weekend before trail days. So looking forward to those in the next upcoming months, and just getting together with a hiker community. Both of those are good times. I've never been to the Roan Mountain, so I'm looking forward to that, and really looking forward to getting back up at trail days. So I'll be sure and update you as I get more information in, and it just seems like I get more information in every week about trail news and stuff going on out there. The best thing you can do is to go ahead and subscribe to this channel, and that way you'll get notified whenever I drop a video and have some more updates coming in. And more importantly, go down below, you'll find a link to that Google spreadsheet where we've got all the thru hikers that we're tracking, which is somewhere around 250, and that grows every week of folks that are either on the trail or getting out there on the trail. And what I want you to do is go subscribe to their channels and then go and comment and keep them pumped up and send them messages and let them know that you out here and you care about them, and you're enjoying what they've got to put out and you're cheering them on throughout their whole track. Folks, that's all I've got this week. As always, appreciate you, and we'll see you out there.